I am going to share my screen very quickly. And I am excited. As Elise said, my name is Audrey, and I am the program manager for Real World Scholars. You probably see my name at the bottom of a lot of emails, and I'm excited to get to spend some time connecting with you all this week and learn a bit more about your classrooms. So this morning, as Elise mentioned, we're going to be talking about navigating the EdCorps experience during these challenging times, whatever that may look like for you, whether it's distance learning, excuse me, hybrid learning, or you're going back to the classroom. We know this is new for everyone. We also know that right now, no one is the expert on this. And so, I'm just excited to be part of this conversation today to learn more from some brilliant educators and friends of ours. We're just excited to kind of be a part of this conversation. We'll be taking notes. We will be, we're coming up with some resources to hopefully help you also, through this, different time. And so we're just excited to be part of the conversation. And I would like to introduce our three panelists for the day, or for the morning. First, we have Chris Aviles, Dan Ryder, and Jennifer Stilitano. And I do want them to introduce themselves, but I first want to just thank you three for being part of this conversation. We know that this is new for everyone, and just thank you for being part of it and sharing your thoughts and ideas with us. So I think let's kick it off with some introductions. I see you, Jennifer. So if you wanna start, I'm gonna stop sharing screen so everyone can see your face.
Okay, awesome. Well, hi everyone. Just super excited about just this virtual summit, and obviously super honored to get to kind of have this conversation with you all. I'm like thinking that this is gonna probably help me more than it's gonna help you to kind of think through what the heck's gonna be happening in my classroom starting Friday in the virtual world. So I guess I'll just kind of start a little bit with just a short introduction. I'd say my journey in education started, I guess, as a student myself, but I'm in my 16th year teaching, and a little over 10 years ago is when I like to start to think that I became a PBL geek. I was introduced to the structure through a Buck Institute training, and then I was just totally hooked. And then the following year, I got to be part of the founding team of teachers to open up Central Coast New Tech here in Napomo, California, which is about, it's right in the middle between San Francisco and LA, right on the coast. If you might be familiar with San Luis Obispo, it's kind of our biggest city around. And, this year we are starting back fully distance. We may or may not transition to a hybrid model eventually. But yeah, I've been wrapping my head around what running Dire Lights, which is the EdCorps I run. It's an artisan candle making business, and we're going into our 4th year as a business. So trying to wrap my head around what that's going to look like. So yeah, bear with me today as we talk through kind of some of my ideas. And I also would love, any ideas from you guys and feedback, but just excited to be here, and thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Chris, I saw you on there somewhere.
Yes, hello. My name is Chris Aviles. I am a middle school entrepreneurship and innovation teacher here in New Jersey. I started with entrepreneurship in the classroom in 2015 and quickly got connected with the wonderful folks at Real World Scholars. So after that, I decided to make my life difficult and launch not one, not two, but 3 EdCorps. My 6th grade EdCorp is focused on product design, where we say that your problem is our product. And then in 7th grade, they go from product design to we run a business together so they can get their feet wet. And that is a agricultural business. So we focus on basil because we're just getting started in our journey in agriculture, but then we also do farmers markets in the fall and then in the spring. And then my 8th grade team is FH Leads, and that's where they get full ownership of their business. They get a budget, they form their own teams, they start their own businesses that they take with them when they graduate. And so even in 2020, I still have kids running businesses they started in 8th grade. So entrepreneurship, has been part of my life for a while now. And it's just been such an amazing way to get cross-curricular and empower students. And I think the biggest thing I hear from my kids, especially now, with distance learning is, the work that we do is a break from the worksheets and as a break from staring at Zoom cameras. And especially with the expectation, even though we're separate, we're still going to work together. And my kids really enjoy that. So it's been a fun journey, and I'm excited to embark on this new fully virtual one this year because my students and I will be fully virtual as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. And Dan, you in there somewhere?
Whoa, I'm in here somewhere.
Awesome.
Oh boy. So they were like, hey, we're going to have two outstanding people and Dan. So I appreciate allowing Gray Muzzle to be part of the gang here today. Also, Chris is who I want to be when I grow up. So that's exciting. But anyway, my name is Dan Ryder, and I am one of the early adopters of EdCorps land. In the Wayback Machine, a bunch of years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, I got involved with EdCorps. Because I was an English teacher, I know, no negative self-talk. You're about to spend 45 minutes with me. That's hilarious. No negative self-talk, Dan. But anyway, I was an English teacher who got bit hard by design thinking and was just like, yes, empathy-driven problem solving. This is what I want to make my English classes to be, and that's what we did. And as a result, one of our projects was designing 3D printed fidgets. This was before the fidget spinner craze ruined everything for us. But we'd started doing that, and I met the Real World Scholars crew as a result of that at a conference, and next thing you know, we're an EdCorps, and it has been amazing. Since then, I've adopted my role changed my role rather, at Mount Blue High School here in Farmington, Maine, from English teacher to director of our Success and Innovation Center, which is a problem-solving studio for all students and faculty on campus, where we combine the best practices of design with best practices of restorative justice and social emotional learning. So the idea is the synthesis of all these different things into a makerspace, social workspace / human-centered problem-solving space. It's a little bit of everything. And so this is going to be year 4 of that venture. And I'm also going to be teaching alternative ed English classes this year, which AKA is called Teaching English Classes in my community. So that's my story. Our EdCorps sadly wasn't able to sustain, because once I didn't have a regular class of students, it was very difficult to keep it rolling. And after trying unsuccessfully to get it adopted by a different class, and also trying to a variety of different models to try to keep it going, what I just shifted to was helping students start their own businesses as part of the center. So we've helped launch a pottery business. We've helped launch a welding and artesian metalcraft business, and amongst others, web design businesses. I used what I learned through EdCorps to help move kids forward, and got out of the way so more EdCorps family members can join, like all you wonderful folks. So
Awesome. Thank you. We again thank you all for joining and being part of this panel, and we're just going to throw some questions at you and let you answer all the big questions that we have. Does that sound good? You'll be able to solve all the world's problems during this session? Yeah. Okay. So we know that connection during these times is both challenging and also more important than ever. We just want to start with the conversation around how we can build classroom culture and classroom connection during these times, and how can the business play a role in this. And I will just throw that question to the three of you. Feel free to jump in whenever if you have some thoughts.
I mean, I think overall that's the most important question that we're all asking. is how are we going to stay connected and build the relationships that are just so important to learning. You know what I mean? Teachers, kids don't learn from teachers they don't like. And the most important thing we got to figure out is how to recreate as close to the face-to-face experience as possible. And I honestly don't have any solutions. I have a lot of ideas, I'm sure, like everybody else. And so I think the first thing for me is going to be establishing a routine, making sure that my kids know where to be and when to be there and know that they're expected. Because I found that if you expect students and, you want them to be where they're supposed to be, it's a way of letting them know that you care. And when they're missing, you let them know, hey, we missed you today. What happens? Everything okay? So I think that's the biggest thing I'm going to focus on, is making sure we have a routine. And I think maybe after that is making sure the routine isn't exactly what they're getting in every other class. It seems to be a lot of worksheets. It seems to be a lot of, I brought back the word dittos recently. I'm trying to revive the dittos. But, it seems to be just a lot of like, here's a lesson, kind of go do a worksheet. I want to recreate that experience of us being next to each other and I'm looking over their shoulders or sitting at the table with them, discussing their ideas. So I think that's really the biggest thing for me, is have a routine, but have a routine that is based around connecting and conversation, rather than regurgitating to them, things that I guess that we think they need to know.
I'll piggyback off that, Chris, just kind of thinking about using the synchronous time, right? Because we don't want the kids just being on the screen all 6 hours. So we're really trying to think through, like, what's the synchronous time going to look like? And I think, utilizing that point for the conversation, like we're doing now. I think using project-based learning, and maybe to use Jenny Peratt's kind of term, like PBL light, permission to maybe modify it and right, maybe I don't have to launch into full on like group stuff right away. But just like still using that structure, because built into PBL, like, is that voice and choice. It's reflection is going to be a part of every time we meet, and talking about, using the business as, how to do all of this. And I think I'm feeling really blessed right now. I have 10 kiddos who are coming back and in year 2 with Dire Lights. So I'm going to have about 20 newbies in Entrepreneurship 1, and then 10 continuing kids. So I'm going to really rely on them a lot to tell the story, and just kind of let their passion chime through, so that we can get the new kids to really buy in to the business. The kids last year did an amazing job, like starting a social media campaign, just to remind everyone to take care of themselves. And that's kind of part of what we're going to need to be doing also. So they did, a self-care Sundays where they highlighted different people around the school campus talking about like how they're taking care of themselves. And then the HR department, I'm still going to rely really heavily on them to maintain the culture and build culture again with the newbies. They developed a really cool, just Google form check-in that I'd like them to actually do asynchronously, and then we can like talk about it when we're during our synchronous time. Elise, you shared a beautiful quote earlier. That's been a really cool culture building strategy for me. So starting still with a real relevant quote. I love all the ones from Brene Brown and Simon Sinek. And then let the kids talk about it, unmute and say, how does this, connect to what's going on in our lives right now? So those are just a couple of things, but again, just like using the business to get at all this. So, kind of making it as real as possible.
My friends speak my voice. Everything that's been said before is really, that's my guiding light through this all. One of the challenges that we're facing is that we don't really know what's going to work, and we don't have a lot of places where we can turn to see what does. But it just struck me as we were sitting here talking that what we're going to be asking students to do is going to be functioning a lot like many work environments are right now, right? So one of the opportunities we have, and as part of my reframing of all of this in terms of making that shift from okay, I know it's not going to be as good as, and okay, I know if we were together, we would be, but, you know, we have that posture of defeat and grieving that we bring with us, about the year not looking the way that it typically does. We can turn that a little bit into, all right, here's what we're going to do, right? So we're going to function just like Google is right now. We're going to function just like Wayfair or just like any other Fortune 500 company that we want to point out that is like severely problematic with their hiring practices and a million other problems, right? But that's how we're going to function, right? And we're going to do our best to mirror their practices, which means XYZ for us. And we know we have to balance that against our school expectations and our administrators' expectations and our communities and the parents and all these folks. And we're going to do our best to leverage those things. But just that idea of looking at it as opportunity to build those real world skills of functioning in different environments, it can help those of us that are already moving into entrepreneurship education into really getting our students just some serious, like, real-time skill building, which we often in the classroom have to say, like, well, I don't know, it's like class, so it isn't really like the world of work. Well, it just got super much like the world of work. So thank you, federal government, for not doing the best job you could, because you've given us all such a gift. Really, it's fantastic, so helpful. But in seriousness, I do see we can do a lot with this.
Yeah, it doesn't get more authentic than this, right? It's like running an online business for sure. But it just made me think of probably the importance, and this is probably everyone's thinking this, but just the importance of us modeling that growth mindset and that flexibility and the adult agency of, you know, and being really willing to share that with the kids, you know. And I think I'm looking to get a lot of solutions from the kiddos themselves. You know, I'm working with juniors and seniors, and I imagine they're going to be probably teaching me a lot of cool tech tools and how to stay connected online as well.
Definitely. And Dan, I love that point around talking about this as not a negative, but as a learning experience. I mean, how even, you know, in our day-to-day lives, how often we're thinking, oh my goodness, we've been doing this for, you know, 5 months. In California, we've been, you know, staying at home for the past 5 months. And also it's given us opportunities to spend time with, you know, our loved ones, to work at the same kitchen table as your partner potentially. But, you know, it's been a really interesting time. And also I think that's a really great, you know, way to put it forward to our students, that we're going to learn about this together, which is, you know, a big part of the entrepreneurial process is like, you know, trying new things and learning it together. No one needs to be, you know, the expert in the room. Let's all figure it out together. So my next topic for you, you know, some aspects of the learning and the EdCorps experience are going to be very challenging this year, you know, specifically around product development and doing in-person selling events. Those, who knows if those are going to be able to happen this year. And this shift might also make room for the class to dive into other parts of the entrepreneurial process. Are there parts of the entrepreneurial process that you expect to focus on differently or engage more with this year than you have in the past? You know, what are some activities or topics that you're hoping to explore this year? And I know that's a big question.
I mean, I think for me, so I'm not sure. I think for some of our students, and I'm thinking specifically of some of my students, that this may be the first time that they've ever had adversity on this scale before, where their entire lives have been disrupted. And obviously, I know that's not true for every student. There's a lot of students who come from a place of trauma, but I know for a lot of my students that I'm hearing from, moving to online, having their schedule disrupted, right? This is kind of new for them. They haven't experienced, you know, and in a way they're lucky they haven't experienced anything like this before. And so for me, I think one of the areas I want to focus on is probably a deep dive into that empathy connection. Now students, you know, maybe have faced and seen, you know, people in their lives facing, you know, maybe issues and problems they've never experienced before. And I know for me, one thing I've always tried to work in my program from that empathy side are interviews, user interviews. And what's been hard for my students to really, I guess, wrap their heads around is they generally come from a place when they're interviewing of, this is my product, do you like it? And I think I want to dive into a little bit more of interviews that involve understanding the person you are working to solve a problem for. And now maybe they have a better understanding of all the moving parts when it comes to problem solving. Even from, you know, we're a district that goes K through 8. And we also, you know, if you're familiar with New Jersey, you basically throw a rock and you hit a school district, right? We have something like 558 school districts. You know, a lot of them are within just miles of each other. So they're experiencing friends who go to another district, but maybe they're in the same soccer club together, have a totally different schedule versus their cousin in North Jersey who's completely shut down virtual, where the school down the road is doing half days. And so I'm hoping they're starting to realize that maybe one size doesn't fit all. And when it comes to a solution, you're better off really understanding the problem and the person you're solving that problem for. And that's been something I've really had a hard time doing. You know, I think the closest I got was when we were selling basil, you know, we were selling basil to pizza places in our town. And this pizza place needed this much basil on this timeline, and this pizza place needed this much basil on a different timeline. And a lot of my kids started to realize, well, why don't all pizza places need the same amount of basil at the same time? And I think this maybe will add an extra like layer of authenticity and hopefully a layer of thoughtfulness when it comes to problem solving now. So I'm really hoping to dive into empathy a little bit more and working with students to better understand just truly how wicked and complex problem solving can be.
All right, I guess I'll go next. Yeah, I connect with what you're saying there, Chris, with like using this as an opportunity, obviously, to really work through like identifying what our problems are. Sometimes that can be the challenge, you know, like, oh, what exactly is the issue? And then designing around that. I think I'm going to use this year as an opportunity to really do a lot more with the entrepreneurial mindset. I make that a huge theme in the first project anyways, before really even getting into the Dire Lights project, but I see an opportunity to really explore that and really, you know, do a lot of comparison between our own, you know, traits and our own strengths and weaknesses with maybe other entrepreneurs, and I'm really looking to one of my students who actually is going to be in the session tomorrow with us. If you want to hop on, you'll get to hear his voice a little bit, but he's inspired me after sharing his story to really intentionally think about how I can bring just more conversations about diversity and diverse business practices, really relevant right now, and as it always should be. But I think that's an opportunity for me to do a lot more learning about what diversity in business looks like, and introduce my kids to that. I think, you know, using the Scrum process. And so typically in the classroom, we have our like physical Scrum board. So I think I'm going to be using Trello. We'll be using that as like a digital Scrum board, and then just a collaborative Google Doc with knows need to knows as like our backlog that we just all can be asynchronously updating and then pulling from that as far as like tasks go to run the business. I made the decision when first starting out with EdCorps to pick one product and stick with that one product. I learned in our sessions working with some other wonderful EdCorps facilitators this summer that I think it's a control issue though on my part. But at any rate, it kind of allows me to have that piece set and actually start to really create like a really high quality product while letting the kids focus on really how to like run the business. So, you know, we have my marketing department, as I mentioned, they are full force on social media. So I think we're going to really do that a lot this year. And like what Dan said, you know, look at, okay, how does Google do this? How are other companies, you know, running their business online and doing that? I learned a really cool new protocol that I'm going to start off with. It's called the Innovator's Compass. And it's kind of a quote sums up what you can do, but it's a quote by Albert Einstein. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And the Innovator's Compass is just, it's, you know, based off of a design thinking approach where your users are at the core. And so I just want to throw that out to the kids and see what they come up with, you know, really start the year like, this is our challenge. We're not going to be seeing each other in person. And how are we going to make things happen? So I'm actually hoping to use that protocol to pull out a lot of cool ideas that, you know, the kids will have, and then I can kind of, you know, structure them for them. I have an amazing parent who's offered to help me. She has a few online businesses and is like an SEO expert. And she's offered to, you know, come on my Google Meets and like talk to the kids about just how to run an online business effectively. And there's a cool, I think it's online marketing certification through Google that she said she's, you know, willing to take a small group who's interested in that and like take them through all the different courses for that. So yeah, I think just using this year as a way to really bring our mission to life. So the mission of Dire Lights is more about hands-on education, honest innovation, and personal well-being through selling candles. So I think just focusing on those things right now and seeing what the kids come up with. I'm excited to see what they come up with. It'll be cool.
We're gonna focus on making all the monies. I think perhaps we had it wrong in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. No, I just thought, I thought the whole point of EdCorp was just rake it in. So we're going all in. We're just going to try to make all the monies. Yeah. And at the same time, one of the things I'm looking at trying to do with my students, because I'm going to have regular classes for the first time in a couple of years for me. So it's some new space. But I'm intrigued always by the empathy piece, like Chris was saying. Like that's where I want to lean into, especially knowing that could help with a lot of the social justice work that I want to be doing this year, and helping kids here in Western Maine, which is a fairly landlocked part of the country in terms of the diversity, although just 30 minutes down the road is the second largest Somali population in the US, second only to Minneapolis. At least that was true up until, I think it's still true. So while Maine may seem like the whitest in the nation, and I think we still are technically, we're a growing and evolving population, and my kids need to learn how to navigate that much more effectively. So I want us to lean into that work of empathy, but I also want to lean even harder in, as it may be difficult to build products, I want us to lean even harder on the marketing and advertising side of things, because that's another way to kind of incorporate all students' experiences. And we actually have on staff, our commercial arts teacher worked in public relations and marketing most recently before she came on board as our commercial arts teacher, and I was thinking about enlisting her experience. But the idea being that can allow for all of my students to pursue whatever venture they might be interested in, whether it's starting a garage, which is like usually what most of my students want to do, or if it's starting a food-based business or whatever it is. It gives us kind of a super utilitarian approach, right? And it's storytelling. I just saw Elise, storytelling. And story is what makes us human. It's what makes us unique. And the more we can tap into that, for those of us looking for those curricular connections, every content area is also just telling the story of fill in the blank, whatever it happens to be. So those are the places where I think I'm gonna lean hardest. And Jen mentioned the Innovators Compass, and Ella is a good friend of Real World Scholars and a really good friend, personal friend of mine. She's super rad, and I will like hype up the innovatorscompass.org all I can. I use a modified version of it every single time I'm working with students. I just do a really rarefied little index card. I've got hundreds of them everywhere where every time I work with kids. So yeah, I'll happily share. It's just a simplified like version, and it works really, really well. As great if you're like the work we're talking about. If you need to do quick one-on-one or small group conversations, it is a fantastic way to capture the essence of the conversation, because it gets you from observation and reaction to action. And it's just a really helpful mind frame. So Ella gets all the love and all the respect, and don't want to brag or nothing, but I got to see the first version of it, and it was pretty cool. So I've gotten to watch it grow, and that's extra cool too. So how exciting to hear it talked about today. But yeah, I think that's where I'm going to focus on story, experience.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And as Elise kind of jumped in, put in the chat, marketing is storytelling. And, it's a great way to not only, get your students learning, how to tell their story, what types of stories to tell, but also, marketing can usually be done from home, from a computer. So, whether it's making quick commercials or it's, writing social media posts, those are all great opportunities for the students to, work on the business potentially in a remote capacity.
Well, I think TikTok has taught us that the era of the infomercial is coming back.
Yeah. As seen on TV commercials, we need.
Right. So I'm like, as seen on Instagram, as seen on IG Reels, which is the latest and greatest. Yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day, like that. What a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm going to try the Innovators Compass with my staff first today. So those of you who also plan your adult learning on campus, that's my other hat I get to wear. But yeah, I'm going to use the staff as a guinea pig, just about like how we can use PBL to move us forward during this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you know how it goes.
So going off of what you guys are kind of talking about and some exciting, tools and new practices to try out with your students or your staff, I just kind of wanted to open it up. If you guys have any, exciting, as I said, tools, resources, practices, games. Dan, I know you're full of improv games. Are there, just any fun ideas that you're excited to try this year? And for those in the chat, maybe you could throw, if you have any ideas, throw them in there. I just thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of share, whether it's EdCorps related or not EdCorps related. If there's just some fun, exciting things that you're looking forward to trying out this year, I would love to hear about them.
I think building on what Dan, and then I'm going to pick Jen's brain in a little bit. I've always wanted to get those asynchronous tools into my classroom, whether it was Cello or Slack, and I never was able to get them to stick, probably because the kids were sitting next to each other in class and they didn't feel that need. But I'm curious if I can get these asynchronous tools, similar to what Dan was saying about, we're basically like in the same situation as a company where we are now, right? All working virtually, still disconnected, but trying to connect. I'm hoping whether it's some type of Scrum model or Trello or something, I can get some type of asynchronous planning board to work. So I'm going to have to pick on Jen and Dan and see what they suggest, because I haven't been able to get it to stick, but I think now might be a really cool opportunity. Because I think the other thing, here's the press release, new announcement. They have rejiggered our schedule at my middle school. So I used to see 4th and 5th grade once every 6 days. I'm now going to see them every other day for marking periods. So I am now pushing the EdCorp experience all the way down. So I'll have EdCorps from 4th to 8th grade. But inspired by Dan in the last 10 minutes, I think I'm going to have it more as a center. And instead of breaking them up into individual EdCorps, I think it's going to be one big EdCorp. And so that's going to be kind of the plan this year too, because I'm hoping, I work in the library, and the word on the street is I'm getting my own classroom next September. So I'm hoping during lunch and recess and after school, right, it can be open. And so we have cross-curricular, but also cross-grade level, kind of things going on. So I'm curious if I build these asynchronous tools and this ability, part of working online, because we're going to be in A/B cohorts, probably, as well as different grade level cohorts. If I throw them all in the same Google Classroom and I give them all the same asynchronous tools, will they form teams that aren't bound by grade? You know what I mean? Maybe they'll form teams bound by passion. So I'm curious if I start that this year and basically say, you can work with anybody you want in this Google Classroom, brothers, sisters, friends, older, younger. Maybe we can make it like Dan has, where it's everybody coming together. I think that's really exciting. So that's going to be, I think, the big push. And I think it might start with getting them to understand that, asynchronous tools and being passion driven rather than, grade driven, meaning, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, not A, B, C. We're still working on that part too. It might be the key to success for me to take my program to the next level.
Nice. Speaking of games and gaming, like game, I have fallen deep into the board game and card game so one of my goals, and for the last several years actually, and getting students to design cool games and such, and that's a big part of kind of Kickstarter land right now, and self-publishing is different types of story, but also video games, card games, board games. For people who aren't aware, like the board game and card game world has like really exploded in some really fascinating ways. And just as a video game world has started to get more social consciousness into its places. So I want to build on an idea that we kind of tinkered with a couple of years ago, which was designing games for change in our community, and to lean into it being board games and card games. And so I'm hopeful that I can find a way in with that. But also role-playing games. I'm a super nerd anyway. This is my comic book collection behind me. There's action figures just out of sight, and there's a 1979 Millennium Falcon hanging out over there. But I hadn't really gotten into Dungeons and Dragons until quarantine, and now I'm like all in on that because I needed more nerdy things in my life. But the thing is, one of my good friends, Matt Drew at Card, is a curriculum coordinator here in Maine, and he got introduced to D&D with me, and we've been playing on Monday nights for the last 3 months or so. And he's created a micro-credential type course for his students in his district, where it's all around building out character and story, and it integrates all these different aspects of the curriculum using role-playing mechanics to do it. But it doesn't, you don't have to play the D&D side of it. Like, you can create these characters in a real world setting, in whatever setting you want. It's about what's this world you build. And world building and the idea of intellectual property is an important idea for kids to be navigating right now, as as we watch giant corporations control more and more properties and ideas. And what does that mean? And kids don't know. On-demand culture has made some interesting shifts to how they see the commerce of pop culture. They don't have the timeline that by we, I mean, the ancient Gen Xers that that I am, when you'd have to go to the store and like look through old like used CD bins for things. So you got a sense, and then before that records, right? Like you get a sense of when things came out and how old they were and how new they were. And students, they just see everything as present. It's just here. And that's not a bad thing that they have access, but what they've lost is the timeline. And they've lost the context in which things come out and how difficult it is for things to come out. But also the idea that these are ideas that are owned. And these were ideas that were created by humans and by people. And what all went into that. So one of the things I'm going to try to do is use the inroads that I have with my students and their particular passion points to help them kind of get a better sense of chronology. I'm super lucky because I do live in a rural community. One thing that hasn't gone on demand is the world of transportation, like cars, trucks, ATVs, tractors, dirt bikes, all that stuff. I don't know what I'm doing with them, but my students always do. But there's still a sense of there's a built-in chronology, like they get it. So I want to kind of help them start seeing the other things in their lives through that lens. At least that's where I'm headed.
I'm totally headed there too. I think using their passions to help them then identify where they want to dive deep and what their next steps are, and is going to be even bigger now, right? Because it's really trying to create a space where they really want to log on and take their video off, right? Because that's going to be a weird thing. I was just told that we can't make them show their faces in the Google Meets. So like my personal goal is like, at least in Dire Lights, like they're all going to want to, maybe not my freshmen in RNC quite yet, hopefully in a couple months, but yeah, I definitely want to really rely heavily on what each kid is interested in and their passions. I've had a lot of luck with the discussion boards. And so that's something that I haven't really done before, because we'd always have like a half hour every Monday in our schedule where we'd have team meetings, Socratic seminar, and just talk face to face. But I think I'm going to be trying out and relying pretty heavily on discussion boards within our learning management system. With the New Tech Network, we have the LMS Echo. It works like Canvas or Haiku or Blackboard or any of the other LMSs. I think with Google Classroom, you can do it with a forum. So if you're using Google Classroom, Google Classroom really likes you to have your own website too, I discovered after talking to some teachers. So it's kind of multifaceted, but if you build your own website and link it to your Google Classroom, I guess you can do a forum that allows the kids to reply back and forth. But perhaps you could do it as just like a collaborative Google Doc. But I'm lucky that Echo has that feature. The other thing, like I mentioned before, is I'm going to try out Trello. I also didn't have luck with it when we were in person, because they were like, why? I don't want to go on this other tool and leave this tab open when you're right here. And I can just like tell you what I'm working on. But I think it's going to be pretty valuable now. And I think just set the norm of like, okay, Trello's always up. It's always a tab open on our browser. Because if you don't look at it, it doesn't get done either. So somehow kind of training them with that. I'm excited to try out Pear Deck. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work with like all of my different monitors that I'm going to have rolling starting next week. But Pear Deck, it's just an add-on that our district purchased for us that gets installed right into our Google slide decks, and it makes it interactive. So like if I'm presenting a slide, I can be like, hey, how are you guys feeling this week? Scale of 1 to 5. And real time, they can enter it right into the slide, and it kind of has polling features, and I just think it'll be more interactive. But again, I'm a little nervous because like on the back end, you have to like have another device showing like the dashboard and stuff, and I'm just worried that it's gonna be hard to navigate it all. And then I'll drop this one in the chat, but this is the digital marketing stuff from Google that I'm going to have that mom help a group of kids who are interested in doing that. I'm not going to force all of them to do it, but who, again, going with their passions. If they are wanting to be part of the marketing team, then that'll be kind of an expectation for them. There's probably a lot of more other things, but those are just a few that I'm going to be trying out this year and see how it goes.
Awesome. Yeah, and we're going to, I mentioned earlier, we're creating some what we're calling field guides, and they're going to be, running docs that, of ideas that come up throughout the summit of, different distance learning ideas, different ways to incorporate the business in a, remote environment. So we are going to definitely go through all these ideas that have been thrown into the chat and put some of those in there, because I think that you guys, of course, are each other's best resource, and we want to make sure we're finding a place to, curate all of those resources, so you know where to find them. So
Speaking of resource,
Dan, Chris,
not to interrupt, real
no,
quick.
go for it.
Real quick, I just sent this to Elise, so we don't have to spend any time on it. And the glare is going to be awful. But I just made a mini version of the Innovators Compass while we were talking.
Wow.
So it's these four quadrants, right? And you just start with observations about your problem. Then you have to think about what really matters, like at the core of solving the problem, what really matters to you or whoever the stakeholder is of that problem. Mm-hmm. Then ideating ideas and choose one idea. Choose one to go with. And this becomes a fantastic way to have a conversation. So I sent a picture of this to Elise so she can send it to everybody else. And I would have sent it to you too, Audrey, but I typed E first instead of A.
That's okay.
On the email, and it just like instant formed. But I wanted to show people how easy it is to start adopting a tool like that.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll definitely share that out with everyone. So we are getting close to time. So Chris, Jennifer, Dan, do you guys have any last minute thoughts? We appreciate you guys so much for being part of this conversation.
Thank you for having me. I think my last minute thoughts are kind of when I started to get into entrepreneurship. I was asked to come in and start a tech program for my school, and teaching tech for tech's sake doesn't really work, right? And so I wanted to create a course that was about problems and using the tools, right, that we have access to solve problems. And what better way to make problems for kids than have them run businesses? And that's kind of how it all started for me. And like Dan, I like to say I'm a recovering high school English teacher, and I run businesses, on the side. So for me, it's kind of been an experience where I just follow the kids' lead. And I think going into this year, it's going to be the same thing. If like bowling, I set those bumpers out for my kids, let them bounce around, we'll all kind of get moving in the same direction eventually. So I'm excited to take on this year, even though it looks different. And I'm going to follow my kids' lead and do everything I can to support them. And, I think in a way it may become a net positive, because I have a lot of kids who, this whole entrepreneurial process and solving problems and creating products kind of really consumes them. And so I think now that they're going to have more time because they're not going to be in school every day, I think this may, they may find even more time to work on these projects at home because for them, it might be the brain break that they have, the moving, the creating, using your hands versus a lot of the direct instruction that they're getting. So I think that's my biggest plan is, what was the meme I saw? I don't have a plan. It's more of a loose structure. I have a loose structure. And I'm going to just let my kids lead the way.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Snap. That's that's our new tech thing. I did just thanks for hosting this, and this has been I knew it would be really great. Just thinking out loud with y'all. So thank you. And there's been such great stuff in the chat. Just final thought, good luck everyone. I just, wish you all the best this year. And I think what Chris just said, let's just listen to our kids and let them lead the way. Cause it's all about them. And I think they're going to have a lot of amazing things come out of this if we just give them the space and the encouragement to design and create.
I'm pretty sure that was a Whitney Houston lyric dropping in there, Jen. I'm not disagreeing, you know, because I believe the children are our future. I just saw a comment about the landscape is different for 9-year-olds, and it totally is. It totally is. And depending on the age group that you're working with, it can shift. And that's why I thought when Jen was talking about mindsets, the beautiful thing about mindset is you can teach a mindset to any age group, because you're not focused on the discrete, you know, task. You're like, my goal is to get them to think in this way, and then I can adjust to whatever my population is that I'm working with. And I think that's one of the things I like about EdCorps is it helped my students in the frameworks that we played with here and working with real world. It's not about, you have to do this. It's not a checklist. It's not this like if you don't do all of these things, you haven't succeeded. It's about the more global thinking, and that can get overwhelming. So I adopted this 3D lens I've been using this summer for myself of distill, design, and document. And it's really helped me out of just what really matters, design an experience, a learning experience that doesn't just meet one curricular goal, but has something more than that to it. And then finally document it, take pictures of it, record it, capture it. And those 3 things kind of sums up what teaching and learning is.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate you, and we're excited to jump into our next session, which is going to be advisories. And so when Elise clicks the magic button, as she said earlier, you will all disappear and go into different rooms. Well, you'll be in rooms with a small group of people who are, you know, around your same grade level-ish. And we're hoping you can use this time to connect with each other, brainstorm together, talk about some of the ideas that we heard this morning, and really just, you know, use this time to get to know each other. And, you know, maybe you'll make some friends that can act as connections throughout the year, and, you know, collaboration partners and thought partners. So before we click that button, Dan, Jen, Chris, thank you. We appreciate you. And, you know, make sure to check out the agenda for the next sessions coming up for the rest of the day. And Elise, I think we are ready for you to click the button. See you all soon. Hopefully. Elise, if you're talking, you're muted.
Yeah, so I opened all the rooms, so people should be going to their rooms. It looks like we may unassigned. So Linda still needs to be assigned to a room. Done. Hi, Linda.
Looks like we have some other people still in this room.
Yeah, the folks who are still here, who are finding their ways. Hi, Tay. Do you want to go to a room?
Hi.
Wait, Susan.
I know, I'm supposed to be in a room.
Megan Patton is here. Matthew Barberchek is here.
So the only 3 people who are unassigned are Susan and Tay. So if you're still here, you might need like another, I don't know how this works.
Huh? So Megan is assigned to a room? Okay.
Yeah, Susan and Tay are not. And Tay, I didn't assign you to a room because these are mostly teacher advisories, but if you'd like to join, I'd be happy to. Or you can hang with us.
Okay, I'm going.
Okay. And Megan, if you are here and you need to find yourself into a home, it's strange that I'm not seeing you on my list in terms of assignable people, but let me.
I don't know if there's a way to download the entire chat.
I don't know.
I got some requests for the chat.
Great.
So I'm just gonna grab it all and copy and paste it into a doc for now.
Okay, I'm probably gonna stop recording or